the fabric from side to side to make sure that they don't print over those lines. You're a terrible co-star. Croeso, dear friends. Welcome back to Opus Elenae. Today I'm debuting a pretty big project, one that's been in the works for quite a while now. My partner and I both play in a couple of history and fantasy-based games, primarily the Society for Creative Anachronism, but also a fantasy boffer LARP called Amtgard. He plays much more heavily in that game than I do, and just before the global panini hit, he was announced for knighthood. I decided that I wanted to make something special for him to wear to his knighting, and I settled on a medieval tunic block printed with his heraldic badge, which is the same in both games so he can wear it both places. I haven't carved a printing block since my art school days, so it should be fun and challenging to get back into it. Historically speaking, block printed fabric dates back to the 2nd century CE in Han Dynasty China and became increasingly popular in India, Eastern Europe, and Egypt by the 10th century. The technology came to Western Europe in the 13th century and was adopted most widely in what is modern-day Italy and Germany. There are still extant fabric pieces today, but several of those initially dated to the medieval period have been uncovered as Victorian copies. A couple of notes before we jump into the actual video. Firstly, this video is a bit longer than usual. I was going to split the footage into 2 videos, the printing and the construction, but in the end I thought that having a slightly longer video with the whole project in it would be better. Secondly, please pardon the quality of this video, as most of it was filmed before I got my upgraded camera. Without further ado, everyone grab your cuppa. Today I am drinking August Uncommon's Civil Disobedience, a wonderfully smoky black tea with hints of cardamom and tobacco. Let me know in the comments, as always, what you're drinking, but also what your heraldry would look like if you designed it for yourself, or if you participate in a game that has heraldry incorporated into it, tell me what your heraldry is. Let's get into it. In order to block print this tunic, I first need to carve the block. Traditionally, it would have been carved from wood, and in fabric printing houses in India, this is still how it's done. I hate carving wood blocks though, so I'll be using linoleum. There are 2 different kinds of lino block, a softer version and a harder one. I used the softer one here, and honestly, I regret that. It was super easy to carve the block, but it did not stand up well to repeated use. Also, don't forget that any image that is carved into your block will end up being printed backwards. I ended up carving 2 different blocks because I forgot this. After I am finished carving, I'll make a couple of test prints so I know what areas I need to carve down further because they still have little bits sticking up far enough to show on the printed image. I'm using Jacquard Eco Lumiere fabric paint for the stamps. I wanted a slightly more subtle effect than using straight silver paint, so I mixed silver and black to get a sort of gunmetal color. Now that I have all of the carving of my stamp done, it's time to lay out my fabric and mark all of the pieces. That way I can then mark where all of the stamps will go and hopefully get it printed today or tomorrow. So here we go. After marking out all of the tunic pieces in chalk, I'm going over them with a white gel pen to make sure that the lines don't disappear later. I did try to create a chalk matrix of triangles to show where each stamp should go, but I made the triangles too small, so I ended up just using the horizontal lines as guides and winging the placement. Okay, day 2. I have decided that working on the floor is ridiculous, and I have cleaned off my dining room table, and I'm going to be continuing printing on here. I'm a little worried about printing on the table because it has these little grooves in it along the length, and yes? Brandon's worried about it too. So I'm gonna have to be really careful about making sure that everything that prints over those lines gets fully inked and I don't have really? That everything gets fully inked and I don't have to worry about having weird inkless lines in there. So I think I'll just make sure that I move the fabric from side to side to make sure that they don't print over those lines. You're a terrible co-star. So, let's get to this. I'm going to use the spare length of delightfully gaudy plaid wool to cushion the stamp and eliminate the possibility of lines on the printed fabric. It worked remarkably well. Be sure to stick around after this brief commercial break to see how I build the tunic itself. The first thing I always do is the shoulder seam construction, if there is a shoulder seam, and then any neckline facing there might be. It's easiest to manage the facing when there isn't a ton of extra fabric to get in the way. For this decorative facing, I'm using a purple-gray silk and have sewn the facing on the inside of the tunic so that it can be flipped outward and sewn down. After that is finished, I will add the sleeves. now that I have the sleeve sewn to the body here, which you can see, kind of. So here's the body, here's the sleeve, and there's the seam. So now that I have that sewn, I'm going to be inserting the underarm gusset, which is basically just a square of fabric that will be inserted on each side of the top of the sleeve and where that sleeve meets the body. So basically, once I sew this in there, it will form a diamond of fabric underneath the armpit, which will make for a greater range of movement the more that the arm moves up and down. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is try and show you a bit about how this sleeve is constructed. So it's got, here's the seam for the body, and here's the body, here's the sleeve, right? So it's got a bit of a straight seam here, or straight line here, before the angle cuts in to taper down to the wrist. And what that means is that I have a nice 90-degree angle to place that sleeve into. There you go. There you go. I know you can do it. What if I put something there for you to focus on? Yeah, that's nice. If I sew this square to this nice straight area here, and then I go ahead and sew the next side of the square to the body. So I've then created two sides of this diamond, just like that. Okay, and then I will do the same thing, and we'll pull the sleeve over and do the same thing to the other sides of this square. So I have the top, facing me, the top is this way, right? So the top of the square sides will be attached to the sleeve, and the bottoms of the square sides will be attached to the body of the tunic. So that all it does is creates this nice little diagonal diamond gusset that has stretch along the bias both ways, and that allows for greater range of motion. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that now.
After the sleeves and gussets are set, I'll sew the side gores in. I am marking off the height of the shorter straight grain side of the gore on the side of the tunic body. Then I'll sew the longer bias edge of the gore to the tunic to prevent the sides from stretching out. Starting the gore from the height of the shorter side allows me to cut a curved hem that is even instead of shorter on the side seams. The next step is to have my partner try on the mostly constructed tunic to mark where the front and back gores should go. I like to put the back gores in a little higher in order to accommodate the outward curve of the lower back, and the front ones a little lower so the fullness of that gore starts just below the belly button. hand setting gores is still my favorite way to get a smooth, sturdy point. I'm only setting in the points of these, and then I'll machine sew the length of them before serging all the interior seams to finish them. Once the entire tunic construction is done, it's time to trim up the hem and sew on the silk hem facing to match the neck hole and sleeves. And then we're ready for the reveal.
And there we are. Thanks for sticking with me through the slightly longer video today, darling croissants. My partner was very pleased with his shiny new tunic, and I am very pleased with the way it all came together, even if it did end up being a way more massive project than I'd anticipated. Now, we just need to get enough people vaccinated to create the herd immunity to actually hold the elevation ceremony. Also, don't forget that the Costume Symposium is coming up in just about 3 months. We have an amazing lineup of creators who will be putting together videos, Instagram events, and panels over the weekend of August 19th through 22nd. For more information and updates, you can follow COSI on Instagram and Facebook, the links to both of which will be in the description box below. We're looking forward to seeing you there. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and consider sharing it or any of my videos on your favorite social media platform. I upload every other Friday, and if you like notifications, click on the little bell. If you would like to find me on other social media, I am Opus LNI everywhere, and I will put all of those links in the description box below, along with the link to my Ko-fi, which has exclusive content for donors, as well as my web shop if you would like to help support the channel and Angry Production Assistant Bran in a more direct way. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Will.